Would you call me crazy if I told you I believed in witches? Well, King James VI of Scotland himself wrote a book called Demonology. And in this book, he makes claims that the witches' powers were so strong they could vanish, fly, and even summon great storms. Aye, I'm Aaron of Alloa, and tonight I'm going on a witch hunt. King James was the son of Mary Queen of Scots, and the rightful heir to the Scottish throne. He was on his way to collect his new bride, apparently a right wee hottie, Princess Anne of Denmark, when his voyage was cut short as a raging storm crashed upon the ship. As he feared for his life, King James was quick to point the finger at the witches. These witches that he blamed were apparently known for gathering in this spot where I'm standing on right now. In North Berwick at the Point. Old St Andrew's Kirk, they call it. But this here was once the place where the witches of East Lothian in Edinburgh apparently used to gather, chant around their fires and dance to connect to the otherworldly spirits. King James was terrified of this, but he knew that the witches' powers were real. It was said that one of these witches sailed out to the sea from North Berwick on a sieve. And doing so, she summoned the storm, which she intended to be the end of King James VI. This would lead to King James VI's great witch hunt. And it all began here in the beautiful seaside town of North Berwick. Gillis Duncan was a young servant girl from Tranent, and her master, David Seaton, became suspicious of her, as she was often off gallivanting during the night, as I think old David was a bit of a creep. Well, as a powerful man, he called the law officers, as young Gillis was a suspected witch. These law officers, which would capture, torture young Gillis by screwing her thumbs, crushing her fingers, and stripping her naked. Eventually, they pulled young Gillis into admitting her partaking, along with several other women, could be up to 200, and therefore young Gillis confessed to witchcraft. Gillis was sent to Edinburgh to be trialled in front of the king. Terrified as she was, she admitted to the crimes, to the chants that her and many other women had committed. Witchcraft, which meant only one thing: a certain death. She'd spent her last year alive on Castle Hill in the old Tolbooth jailhouse, where on her last night of living on earth, she would admit to the whole thing being a lie, and that she was tortured into a confession. King James just so happened to be the son of Mary Queen of Scots, and she was in power when the Scottish Act of Witchcraft was put into place. This law meant that any woman that was suspected of witchcraft could be hunted, tortured, and executed as a witch. It became a business. The torture methods became more and more barbaric. Women were shackled and pinned to walls, prodded with iron rods, and even muzzled with metal face masks that held their tongue. This was the Middle Ages in Edinburgh. After the accused woman had been tortured into a confession, they'd be sent on their witch trial, which could consist of any one of a number of things. I'll give you a couple of them, yeah? So, one of them would be to prod her with an iron needle. And if she did not bleed, it'd be the mark of the devil. Another way to test would be to put her in a barrel filled with nails, punctured everywhere, and roll her down the Royal Mile. And at the bottom, she'd be set on fire, whether alive or not. But bear in mind, if you make it to the bottom, you had to be a witch. And another way that they would test would be to see if you would float in the Norloch. The Norloch was once a body of sewage water at the bottom of the old Edinburgh city. If you sank, you were not a witch, and you'd be blessed by heading off to heaven with the angels. If the accused were to float, she'd be deemed a witch. And hundreds of women were brought here to Castle Hill in the city centre, where, after proving to everybody that they were in fact a witch, they would be hung. And after they were hung, they'd be burnt at the stake. Most of these women were herbalists, healers, and midwives, none of them abiding by the ways of Christianity. And the elite were terrified by this and spread such propaganda about these innocent women that had Scotland terrified, to the point that men were not allowed to be along with their wives at childbirth. And if the baby was dead, midwife was sure to be a witch. There were 4 major witch hunts in Scotland between 1590 and 1727. And anywhere between 1,500 and 5,000 women were all accused of witchcraft, tortured, and more than likely killed, just for believing in something a little bit different. Had these people scared just because they didn't understand. But I have to tell you, these women were not witches the way that you and me have been told they were. That's it, everybody. A little bit of information about Scotland's witch past and the witches of the Lothians. And if you still don't believe in these women's powers and capabilities, then, you know, wait for this. Aha! What happens in the land of the wizards stays in the land of the wizards. And the women never underestimate the men. Oh! So now there's 2 of us, is there? 2 floating heads by the fire. Share it. Subscribe to it. Do something with it. Because I don't know what I'm capable of.